The guy I dated refused to show me his STD results, so I told him I was pregnant. I matched with this guy on Bumble, and we immediately hit it off. We had several deep conversations via text before we even met. By the time we had our first date, we had already developed an intimate emotional relationship, and we were acting like a full-blown couple at the restaurant. Pretty soon after that, we became physically intimate, and we both alluded to feeling super emotionally and physically connected to one another. He showered me with compliments nonstop and was basically love bombing. We were very open about having feelings for each other. We continued seeing each other multiple times a week, but it was always the same routine. He'd show up late at night, we'd be intimate, watch a show, talk, and cuddle, and then he'd leave. He explained the reason for this was that it was tax season, he's an accountant, and that he was working nonstop. He'd show up still in his work clothes. I also began noticing that his texts started to become a bit sporadic. For example, he wouldn't text me back for 2 days at a time or take hours to respond. When I asked him about this, he gave me the same excuse. I had an intuition very soon after our initial date that something was off. But I brushed it off because my friends were saying that I was just trying to find the bad in a good thing. I have a tendency of running away from people when things get too serious. Over the next few weeks, this feeling persisted, and the dynamic of us never going out continued. At the time, I had no hard evidence, so I kept chalking my feeling up to my personal issues with relationships. However, I told him that his lack of communication bothered me, and he said he would be better about that. He never was. At that point, I began pulling back a little. I felt silly for texting him frequently and responding quickly. What was odd was that he noticed and began questioning me about this. He said it made him insecure and like I lost interest. I explained my rationale and was very communicative. Again, he said he would get better about texting me, but again, he never did. We had this exact conversations multiple times. I hadn't heard from him in a few days, and when he eventually called me, I assumed it was because he missed me and wanted to check in. No, he was calling to ask if I could get him acid or shrooms because he was going to a club that night with friends. He said the reason he didn't invite me is because I have epilepsy, which is true. It's true. At that point, I decided it was time to end things. I didn't end it on that phone call. But I was trying to talk to him about how bothered I was by his lack of communication and that he was only calling me to see if I could get him drugs. He said he couldn't stay on the phone to converse because he was having allergies and felt very caught off guard because he wasn't anticipating having a serious talk. The next day, I sent him a very cordial text explaining that it wasn't going to work out between us. He never responded. The next day, he texted me like everything was normal, and I reiterated what I had said earlier, but he acted as if I just felt insecure and needed reassurance from him about how much he liked me. So he misguidedly reassured me. I ended up blocking him. About a week later, I realized I was late on my period, and the concerning odor I had developed from sleeping with him unprotected was persisting. This odor began immediately after he finished inside me for the first and only time, a couple weeks prior. There are other more graphic details I won't share here that all definitively indicate that he was the cause. I messaged him telling him my concerns, particularly about the pregnancy. For context, he has a pregnancy fetish, and he begged me to let him finish inside me even though I'm not on birth control. Stupidly, I consented because I was on my period at the time and figured there was a low risk of me getting pregnant. Don't worry, I will never be that reckless and dumb again. After texting him, he assured me I wasn't pregnant and was generally being supportive. I took a test and it was invalid, so I made an appointment with a doctor to do an ultrasound and get tested for STIs. I also brought up the funny smell, and he said he had just gotten tested at the local college and that he was negative, but a blood panel showed that he was deficit in certain nutrients, what was probably responsible for the smell. I asked to see a picture of his results. He refused. He said he would only show me if I promised to see him. He said I was making him uncomfortable and projecting my own issues onto him. He said He couldn't believe that I would just throw him away and everything we had like he was nothing, and insinuate that he was being malicious. I told him that he was holding my peace of mind hostage just for the sake of pettiness. This text exchange went on for a while, and he never sent me a picture of his results. I went to the doctor and was negative for everything, including pregnancy. Thank God. But need a medical-grade douche to get rid of his rancid-smelling semen. However, I did tell him I was pregnant and was still deciding whether to terminate the pregnancy or carry the fetus to term. He's been freaking out and asking to see the paperwork, but I told him the same thing he told me about his STD results. I'm not planning to keep up this ruse for long, just for a few more days so he can experience the same anxiety I experienced. Am I the asshole in this situation?